Hello, everybody. Welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yee.
And I'm Camilla.
I'm Mike Delisio.
Today we're taking a look at a game that we have been anticipating for some years, on and off years list, basically. This is Unconscious Mind from Fantasia Games. There's a slew of designers here and two very notable artists that I think give this a distinct look. Game about therapy, early Freudian psychotherapy particularly. This one, like I said, I've been looking forward to it for a long time.
Absolutely. Highly anticipated game for a couple years now, and here it is.
Here it is. So let me give you a quick overview, an attempted quick overview how this one plays, and we'll give you our thoughts. Here's Unconscious Mind set up on the table. This is one player area. Your board here, your resource tracker, and then the clients that you are trying to treat. There are two central boards. One is the worker placement board with the 9 spots you can go to, and then this is the city board, which you can travel around to take bonus actions on there as well as keeping track of the score, and the endgame trigger, which is going to be this reputation track moving to 10 reputation. When that happens, you'll proceed to endgame scoring. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing in this game. One of the main things you'll be doing in this game is using the resources shown here. These are green resources at level 1, 2, or 3, purple and red the same way. And you'll be spending those to look at these dream cards. You're treating clients by interpreting their dreams here by spending these resources shown on the wheel here in order to get this number of therapy points, maybe some victory points or other bonuses along the way. As you do that, you will move this therapy tracker down further on the matching client. A client is made of both a basic card as well as what is called a grief layer with this Rorschach ink drawing on it. Each grief layer is going to give you points and a reward, and the clients themselves are also going to be worth points in either ongoing benefits or endgame scoring benefits, but you'll notice that from the grief layer, that is X'd out, that is covered, and so that will not be active until you reach this star step of the track, Catharsis, where you get these rewards, and you uncover the benefits of the client. If you treat them all the way to the end here, they will be completely treated. You will draft a new client who will come into that spot with a certain amount of grief that they have to work through, and then you'll get new dreams to work for that client. Treating clients is the first of 3 possible actions you can do on your turn. So you can treat clients, or you can come up here to the worker placement board and place one of your idea tokens or workers onto an action, pointing the little indicator towards one of the 9 specific actions. You are not allowed to repeat an action that you have done earlier if you have workers pointing at it, but you are allowed to stack up to 2 workers on the same action and do that one twice at the same time. You do it and then you fulfill it again. The actions here, these ones across the top will give you extra tiles, which I'll go over here in just a second. These ones are going to allow you to move on the map, which I will cover as well. These ones allow you to draw cards as well as play cards out for the benefits shown on them, as well as for some set collection. And over here is to get those resources on your wheel, as well as to upgrade them or convert one of them into another. After you finish taking the actions when you've placed out workers, you will then look onto the side, and based on which row you've placed your workers into, you will move a jar on your private board 1, 2, 3, or 4 spaces. Based on the action I took on my player board, I can move my jar 3 spaces. Now, a few things happen. If you cross this area here, you'll get a new thought token, a new worker that you can place. Wherever you land in these 3 spaces here, you will activate all of these bonuses across in the row where you landed. So I get a green, basic level 1 resource. I could be able to spend these and get those other benefits. If I landed over here, I would gain a purple, and then I could spend a purple to get a bright idea token. These are used as either extra workers that you can place or allow you to alternate how many spaces you move your jar around. If you land over here, you get to activate something on the city board I'll talk about shortly. But as you gain more tiles from the actions that you took on that main worker placement board, you might get some immediate benefits, and then you turn it over to this side. And now you've beefed up your engine. If you ever fill up a row or a column, you'll get another one of these tokens over here, inspiration tokens, and you'll unlock another action. But now you also have more of these resources that you can work with and level up, so more than 7. As I mentioned, some of the actions will allow you to interact with the city board. What you'll do on the city is you will move around to different places, and based on how many people you have, or based on how many icons that you have collected from cards, or from maybe converting cards into thesis publications, as you do this, you'll be able to unlock more symbols that can interact with the city. As you have those, you can take the actions shown here, up to 5 of them, based on the number of meeples there, or based on the number of matching icons you have to the library or the cafe or the theater or whatever it may be. The last choice that you have on your turn besides taking an action is to rest or to recall your workers. You'll gain 1 coffee cup, which is a resource in the game, for every different spot that you have workers on the board. You will take them back, and then you get to do a rest action on the spot where your meeple, your person, is indicated over here. So you can either take one of these 3, covering it up with one of these markers, or if you have a lot of those tags from cards and from publications that match the spot you're in, you can take a stronger benefit here, including the first person who rests in a spot will gain a reputation. This reputation is important because it can be a good, strong endgame scoring multiplier. If you have lots of these, you can convert one of your unlocked idea pieces over here and cover this up to earn another reputation as well, and you can also do that later in the game. And as the reputation moves forward, certain spots on your worker board or on your personal board will give you stronger benefits. And once this reaches the end of the track here, you will move to end game scoring. At the end of the game, you will score up based on a multiplier the number of points that case study clients give you, either the ones that you've completely treated or the ones that you are still working on, but you have at least brought them to catharsis or removed their grief layer. You'll also score points for the number of completed rows that you have filled in with upgrade tiles, 1, 5, or 16 points for 1, 2, or 3 of them, and the different number of location tags that you have earned from cards and from publications, as well as from clients that you've treated. In this case, 4 different ones would earn me 6 points. Lastly, on the city board, based on the number of the 3 districts that you've rested in and taken this strong benefit here by placing one of your colored insight tokens, you will gain 4, 10, or 18 points for how many of those you visited, and whoever is furthest ahead on the reputation track will earn 2 points for each client they've treated all the way and for each of their major publications or the treatises. The second place player will earn 1 point for each of those. Whoever has the most points is the winner. All right, so starting off, this is just, I alluded to it earlier. This game looks amazing. This has great production, amazing art. I think that the touch of using 2 artists is risky,
Yes.
but it pays off so well the way that this game presents itself with the dreamlike work of Andrew Bosley and then that very elegant, classy, grounded side from Vincent Dutray.
Right. It's a way to bring the theme into the game in the aesthetics of it. You know, and I really, really like that. And I think it extends even past just the 2 artists, even to just the production of it. I love the clear acrylics that you put on top I'm not going to remember the thematic word for it. The grief layer, there it is, you know, that has like the cloudy nature that kind of comes off. And so I love when you take that off and you see the image and it's just like you see that healing almost, you know, as it's uncovered. I think it extends even beyond just the box cover, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and the 2 artists kind of, like you said, cementing the theme of a dream world and grounded reality, I think points to a bigger kind of aspect of this design, which is that it's very thoughtful. You can tell, we waited a while for this game, but it does look like that time was spent developing the game, getting it to its best possible self. I know that at least Camilla and I'm not sure if you did, Chris, played an earlier version of the game a couple of years ago or a year ago, I don't remember exactly, but this game definitely feels like it is honed to a razor's edge. So the look of the game is amazing. I will mention one thing about the components because, as you mentioned, the production is outstanding. The one qualm I have is table space. It's a huge table hog, and if you're going to be playing at the full 4-player count, you're going to need every single centimeter that you have of a gaming table.
It feels like, you know, hey, come play Unconscious Mind with me and bring your table. You know, like I'm gonna need some support from my play group. Yeah,
it's bigger than it needs to be. I think there's areas where they could have kind of reduced the player board and the fact that your resource track is these circles, which is like the least table space efficient. But, I mean, I get that they went for a very thoughtful production. And so it's one of those double-edged swords where, yes, it looks amazing on the table. Downside is it takes up most of your table.
Right.
My other one gripe, I would say, production-wise is, and I would put this kind of in production, is the rule book. I think it is a good rule book, but, and this is personal, this is taste on this particular item. I don't prefer when it's like concepts forward and then gameplay later. So it was a little bit harder to parse than it could have been. That'll go away as you learn it. But it's not even necessarily formatted in a very easy way to find all the rules.
Right.
Sometimes an important rule is highlighted in a green box. That's the same green boxes that they put examples in. So as you're learning through, as you're going to look up and re-clarify rules, you might gloss over something because it's in weird columns or it's in something that you think is an example.
Right.
A gripe, but not one that's going to detract much from my thoughts on the game.
Which I think also speaks to, for me, what you said is I think the rule book is fine. It's not necessarily a barrier to entry, but it doesn't ease that entry point either. And for me, I think even with the repeated plays, because it doesn't have any sort of index that leads you to where those rules are. And so I did find it to be a little clunky to get in the first time. Not necessarily because it's super complex, because I don't actually think it's that complex. I put it as solid, like medium, maybe medium heavy, but probably closer to a medium game. But the rule book doesn't help it.
It's really hard to kind of parse out the weight, quote unquote, of the game. It's always a pretty nebulous thing, especially when you get to the heavier games, right? Not so much when you're talking about the simple filler games. Usually, although you sometimes will get someone, that want to say Lisboa as a filler. But it's not terribly complex in structure, right? In round structure and in what you're doing. The complexity lies in the way that these actions kind of go into larger permutations as the game goes forward. The game, I think, gets longer late game, right? The downtime between turns, right? And I think it's because this idea of it becomes more combo-y, which is great if you like combo type games, and most Euro gamers like that. That is very much a part of this game, but it also does mean that your turns can get longer because you're able to do more with the same actions that you were doing earlier in the game. So it's hard to say. It certainly is a heavy feeling game, but it's not one that I dread teaching as much as some other heavy games.
To speak to that point, I played almost every Lacerda game out there. This has aspects of it that remind me of some of my favorite games of his, but it is, as Mike said, it's one that I'm not afraid to teach.
Right.
I think I can retain the rules easier. The way that it's visually laid out, once again, speaking positively of the production is done in a way that makes the rules clearer and more apparent. I wish the little player aid on your board was better. Well, okay, other than that, I think that, it's just the visual representation, the layout of stuff, seeing where things are, and then even just like the worker placement is very clean, but it's in the depth of connecting lots of actions together that the heaviness of the game comes in, or the rewardingness of the game, maybe to say it a little differently.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to kind of like understand that I don't think the weight, like we're saying, is not in the rules. I mean, at its core, you can do one of three things on your turn, right? But it isn't the execution of that and the combos. Later game, like Mike was saying, as you've built up your tableau, yes, you go and you take one of the actions out on the grid. But then that moves your ink pot, which means you get up to 4 other actions that you're also taking.
So satisfying.
It's so satisfying, but that does mean, and those can also be taken in any order once you get down to that ink pot. So you're also trying to combo and jump around and look at what you need over here to plan ahead. So a lot's happening mentally, and that's where the complexity is coming from it. And that leads to me to probably my biggest negative on the game is just the game length in general. And I want to be clear, I don't think it overstays its welcome, but specifically when the box is saying it's going to be 60 to 120 minutes, I think that's talking about 2 players who know how to play very well, have played before, and are kind of not cutting corners, but playing over top each other where they can. Maybe resolving their last treatment or their ink pot, which isn't going to affect you at all. I'm wrapping that up while you start your turn, something like that. That's about the only way I've been able to get it in at 60 minutes. And that also doesn't include setup or teardown. Or endgame scoring. You cut all those things out and you can get 60 minutes. And that ties in also a little bit with what Mike was saying about it being such a huge presence on the table, like a physical presence on the table. It takes up a lot of space. For me, this is a 2 or 3 player max game. Definitely not 4. I don't think it goes to 5 with the expansion. Right? The expansion doesn't bring a 5th. No, right? Okay, yeah. But 4 is, you're looking at a couple hours. And I don't think it overstays its welcome. It's just the downtime gets to be so much as you add more players and the table presence and having to look over there and see what's going on over there because it just kind of spreads out and gets a little bit further away. So that's probably my biggest negative. It's not necessarily a negative because I really like playing with 2 and 3 players, but it's something to know when the box is coming in and saying 60 to 120 minutes. Oh, that's cutting it pretty close, I think. I do not consider that to be very realistic in my plays.
Certainly not in your first few plays. I mean, I don't think you're going to get anywhere near 2 hours, probably even with 2 players if you're learning the game from the rule book. If you don't have someone there teaching you. I think it will go quicker if there's someone there teaching you, of course. But if you have new players that are learning from the rule book, yeah, it's going to take you more than 2 hours. There's just too much going on, right? But again, I feel like it's a game that is very rewarding. It's a game that feels like it has a natural progression, which I appreciate in longer games where I feel like I'm not spinning my wheels, that I am moving forward, that I am able to accomplish more than I was in earlier turns, that I am able to do more efficient actions to be able to do what took me longer earlier in the game. And so that's why the game length is a little bit less of a negative because honestly, I've been trending towards shorter games. I mean, I just don't play as many of these long, heavy games. But this one I felt like had a good sense of forward momentum throughout.
I 100% agree with that. It doesn't bog down, even as I'm kind of waiting for my turns, because I'm sitting there I have so much to consider. Do I want to put my workers here? Do I put 1? Do I stack 2? Is this one of those times where I do a double action? Which of the 4 spots pointing to that action do I go to? Because it has other implications. How much am I going to move my inkwell? And that's all off of just kind of one choice. One choice is really a lot of sub-choices. And so don't AP this game.
Right.
Don't bog it down. But if you are thinking on other players' turns, there's not too much interference in the game, but sometimes the spots you want will be taken. The things that you want will be taken. It's not heavily interactive, but there is enough consideration going on. You might not recall workers at some point because well, I could do this or a different thing. I'll do the other thing because I'm blocking a lot of spots on the board. I'm really getting in people's way, and I'm okay with that.
And those times where you're trying to wait out the other player, you're like, I could go ahead and recall now, and get the coffee. Or I could treat. And then next turn, you're like, or I could do this. And you just see the other person sweating. And you're like, ah. So it's a really interesting player interaction with that, that I think it sings really well with.
Do we feel like we've covered the main bases? I mean, we've talked about the production. We've talked about the gameplay. I mean, it sounds to me like we're just ready to head into final thoughts. Should we all get on the couch and put out our deepest, darkest thoughts on this game?
Absolutely. Get our clipboards ready.
On this game? Okay.
Who wants to start?
I'll go ahead and go first. I adore so much about this. The theme does really come through. Yes, you're not learning about necessarily the Jungian superconscience that proceeds from all humans. It's not diving deep into that, but it is one of those themes and a treatment of a theme that's clearly thoughtful and makes me walk away and say, I want to learn a little bit more about Carl Jung now because he's one of the playable characters. I love when a game does that. I love that the game is rewarding every step through and through. I'm giving this... I'm kind of debating on wavering a little bit, but I'm giving this one a 9. It's just so fun to play. Yes, there's a few hangups I have. Doesn't matter. A lot of that melts away because I'm having fun, because peeling back the layers of those dream cards to treat your patients, everything about it feels rewarding. Yes, it could have. It's basically a recipe fulfillment game. It doesn't feel like it,
Right.
because of that connection of the theme mechanically, the presentation of it all. It's so very, very fun. If you want if you want depth, but not necessarily complexity, this is great for that.
I'm coming down at a 9 as well. I'm right there with you. I adore this game. Like I said, I think the negatives that I can think of for the game are not things that bother me. You know, they need to be mentioned. It's going to be a table hog, and it's going to run longer than what the box on the outside is going to make you think. Those aren't negatives. I don't mind, because it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't feel like a really long game. I love that you feel experienced as you go. You know, I really like games where you build up and you feel powerful in a dungeon crawler. You kind of have that same feeling, but you're not getting more powerful. You feel like you're getting more experienced, and therefore you're treating better and more efficiently, and you don't have to recall as often. You know, you have better resource generation. You just feel like you can do so much more, and it's about just that puzzle that comes together so beautifully in this. You're thinking on other people's turns, you're watching what they do, you're waiting them out a little bit. I like when you go to the city actions and you're really kind of getting those points and those rewards up there, and kind of those little boons to feed in your experience as well. It's just an experience that sings. But when you boil it down, there's 3 things you can do on your turn. Now those cascade into other things you have to think about, but it is just simply, it's very beautiful in its simplistic, I guess, design, but that grows into a very rewarding puzzle experience, you know, and I absolutely adore it. I think you can't go wrong getting the base version of this. I think the deluxe components are nice and add a little extra flair, but they're also not necessary. And how great is that you don't feel like you have to get the deluxe or you're missing something. They're appreciated and they're beautiful and gorgeous and do enrich it, but they're not required. You know, the base is also really, really good. And in a normal size box, I mean, it's very heavy, but in a normal size box, I just love that. I think the production, me personally, I would rather a company do this, take the time to bring the product to us and it be the right product that they envisioned that's going to stay on my shelf and hit the table. This game has been worth the wait for me. So for me, it's a 9.
I kind of wish I had just followed my id and blurted out my score first. I'm a 9. I say it almost sheepishly now after following you two, but this to me is how I want a mid to heavyweight Euro game. It's beautiful to look at, so it has table presence. It doesn't feel like anything is there just to be there. Like you talk about the grief cards, and when you reach catharsis, you remove that. Is it gimmicky? I don't really think so. I think it actually helps thematically to help you remember what happens when you reach catharsis and what that means. So I don't feel like there's things here just to be here. I like how the resource management works. I feel like there's plenty of mitigation for that. There are plenty of ways that you can manipulate to get the resources that you need. I feel like it is a game that makes sense, where I don't fear teaching it. So many midweight to heavyweight games, I'm like, can we just play this with people who know how to play it? I don't worry about teaching this one as much. I still probably would love playing with people who have played it because it goes more quickly, but it has all of the elements I'm looking for if I'm going to be going for a midweight to heavy game. So a 9 for me, and it looks like 9s across the board.
9s across the board.
Wow, there we go.
Giving Unconscious Mind a seal of excellence from us here at the Dice Tower.
Excellence.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah. Fantasia knocked out of the park, did a fantastic job, clearly resonates with us. Curious to hear if you've played, what you all think of it as well below. So until next time, thanks for coming by Dice Tower Review. I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Camilla.
I'm Mike Delicio.
Lay back and let out your inner darkest secret.
I was almost going to be like, I'm dying here. I'm not dead. I'm not dead. I'm just talking about my thoughts.
Hey folks, thanks for watching another one of our videos. If you like our videos, if you like our channel, you would love to game with us at one of our conventions. Check out Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, and Dice Tower West. Fantastic conventions where we play games with wonderful people, a humongous library, and lots of other events and stuff. Also, don't forget to check out our channel, like and subscribe. I'm Tom Bassel.